You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is our second half of our Wednesday morning show. I got Karen Schoen calling all the way from the Blueberry Patch. That's what I call it up there, and up there in Greenwood, Florida. Now you're growing blueberries this year. Is that right? That's what.
Yes, and we have spent the last week building a huge cage so that we can put them in there. And the poor birds, they're not very happy. They stick by the cage and they yell at us.
Are you trying to tell me the birds aren't not happy? They're not being fed by you? Well, then just put some bird seed out for them. But no, they don't want that. They want
no. We had a discussion, and I told them that I'm very sorry, but I can't afford to pay for them anymore. They don't pay rent. They don't contribute to the blueberry patch.
Oh.
So we have to find something else for them to do.
Kind of like the little red hen here. I mean, oh, I never thought about the metaphor there, but yeah, it is a point there. Now, right now we got the Florida Legislature, and they're moving at breakneck speed in committee. I have never, I shouldn't say never, it's been the first time in a long time that I've seen a lot of things go through committee, sail through committee, that in the past have not gone through very well, and they ended up dying in committee. But this year seems to be a little different. I
think we are really blessed this year in having the Speaker of the House, Richard Corcoran, be a mouthpiece for fiscal conservatism, and he's actually paying attention to the wallet of Florida taxpayer, and that is a refreshing change.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Governor Scott asked for $84 or $86 million for Enterprise Florida, and I may be wrong, or I'll get corrected here. But they said, no, we're not going to give you that. We'll give you $25 million. And that's like going, oh, my God, we can't survive. All the tourists will never come to Florida. And I'm going, right. Why would they not want to come to Florida? Come on here, people. So what are you seeing on here? What's the battles you're seeing take place out here?
We have about 4 of them, and I am with you on this one, and I'm proud of our legislators. I can honestly say this is the first time I agree with you that we have actually been able to sit down and discuss with a group of people that do not yes us to death, because they actually turn what we say into action, and that is refreshing.
It is.
So we have 2 bills right now addressing education. One is SB 1210, and that is now sponsored by Senator Tom Lee, and its companion bill HB 989, and that is sponsored by Representative Byron Donald, and that addresses the problem with the education bill that was passed in 2014, which directed and gave the power of curricular text, etc., to the local communities, but it didn't explain anything. So nobody did anything. And this bill picks up the pieces and fixes all of those problems.
So if I'm not mistaken, this bill right here, Senate Bill 210 and House Bill 989, if this goes through, it'll bring education curriculum to the local level. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. This is making it more acceptable, making it easier for the local communities to take over the total education, which fits right in what President Trump is advocating when he says, I'm going to block grant the money and give it back to the states.
Grant money is nothing more than... What we call that?
What he's talking about is getting rid of the money that goes to the federal Department of Education and diverting it back to the states so they can take care of education on the local level.
Well, that's the way it should be.
My fear was, as in the past, our legislators turned to Jeb Bush, who gave us this mess to begin with, and they asked him to fix it. And that's not going to work. So these bills will help, and they will help the citizens be able to get engaged and get involved in the education of what is going on in their local community.
Could this be the answer to the Florida Sunshine Standards right here? Could this probably
I
fix?
am hoping so. I really am. And that's going to be really up to the local communities. Because in the past, of course, everybody always takes the path of least resistance.
True.
So if they've done something one way, they don't like change, it's going to be up to the citizens to push forward that change. And what we are hoping is that we can form citizens' committees to review the textbooks, which have already been reviewed, but we have to match them up in the district, because the problem that we face with our legislators when we go to talk to them about the errors in the textbooks, they always say, is that in my district? So this way, if we can match them up, we can say, this is in your district.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, didn't there seem to be a conflict of interest, or when it comes to textbooks and our elected officials? If I'm not mistaken, wasn't Jeb Bush involved with school books being printed out and while he was still governor?
Well, we have several problems. The majority of the problem is that many of the textbooks are printed by foreign governments.
Really?
And they are written by largely socialist people coming from largely socialist countries. So it's difficult for them to depict America because they have no idea what America is about. So that's the first problem.
Okay.
Then the second problem is that some of the books are also published by Muslim countries, and Kuwait and Qatar are two of them that I remember off the top of my head. And as a result of that, when the world history religion section is discussed, it is very heavy on the Muslim faith and very light, very, very light on the Jewish and Christian faith. So by pointing out these items, we've been able to get some of the books changed, but that's not what we should be doing. What we should be doing is calling attention to what this is, to the errors, and making sure that these books and companies are not in our schools. There are wonderful, wonderful books that can be purchased. You don't have to go to the old behemoths who, as we have just discovered, are spewing more propaganda than anything else.
Well, speaking of teaching our children, and I'm not trying to say anything, well, I guess I am saying something negative. When I was in the high school, they complained back in the 70s that, you kids aren't as smart as kids 30 years ago. And they gave tests. They showed me back in the 70s. Here was a test from the 1940s for high school, and I couldn't answer half the questions. And now they have questions that they ask that are even simpler than the ones I had in the 70s. Or I shouldn't say simpler, but they don't seem to be covering the subject matter as well, especially when it comes to civics or when it comes to government. Those things seem to be glossed over very, very lightly, or even our American history, because it seems to be written, well, they say history is written by the victors, that the history that I know and the history that I was taught about the Revolutionary War or the Civil War, or even wars against the Spanish-American War, even those wars are not being taught anymore. They're not being taught the reasons, the causes.
The major problem is that, first of all, education in high school begins in 1865, so they never even go back and go through a true American history.
What? High school starts at 1865? That's America's history?
Yes, that's when they start American history. They do it, what they call the resurrection,
well, I know what you're saying. Reconstruction period.
They talk from the Reconstruction period forward. So they never go back beyond. They never go back to the Civil War. So we never learn about the wonderful people. And believe it or not, there were many blacks who were part of this very rich history.
They were
knowing their history. They get the wrong impression, and we give they are given the wrong impression that they didn't participate in anything, and that is 100% wrong.
Well, you're right. I was talking to, I have a gentleman that calls, he's from up north, and he gets car reviews, but he was talking about how they were doing Black History Month. They were talking about how that there were a lot of black people in the Civil War and the Union Army, but I also reminded him there were black people in the Confederate Army. There were very loyal, there's black soldiers of the Confederate Army. You can find it in the library here.
Yes.
It's incredible.
And George Washington's strategist, the one that he passed a lot of his strategic information by, was his friend who was also black. So all of these things are not shown, and that's why it's easy to divide people when they don't know what their history is.
Well, I am really hoping, we only got about 2 minutes left, I am really, really hoping that through the Trump administration that we start working together instead of working divided. And it seems like, the right was doing some stuff, a few years ago. Now the left's doing some stuff. And I just hope that pendulum swings where we all start to work together, because I think some of our best days may be in front of us now if we can work together. And we can
I agree with you. I believe that, Americans, we are an amazing group of people. And our best days are in front of us. But I am also hoping that we, the people, will not let this happen again, and that especially our group, the people who were educated from the 70s and before, we have a much better understanding of our country. And that's why we are the ones that have to go look and analyze, look at these books, and make sure that our children hear the right information, because we're not giving it to them. And as a result, this is what we have. But I think President Trump's speech last night may be step one in doing things to unify the people, because he may not unify the heads of either side, but he certainly has a good handle on the people.
Well, I did get a point that the last great infrastructure that was done by a president was done during Eisenhower. He made the interstate highway system that we all use every day. Well, if you go out of town in Panama City, you use it every day. We don't have interstate in Panama City, but still, the interstate system, the Eisenhower interstate system that was put together starting in the 50s was pretty incredible. And I think he talked about investing $1 trillion in our infrastructure. Is that what he was talking about last night?
Yes, and he was also talking about participating with the major corporations and making it a public-private. But it was very interesting. They flipped around public-private partnerships, because his public-private partnership means that the private puts up the money.
That's what I told my wife
Different.
I told my wife that last night. I said, public-private partnership, red flag. And then I started listening and said, please let it be the privates put up, the private partner puts the money up, and what the government does is get out of the way. Encourage, deregulate it. Say, okay, that's what the libertarians want to do. We want to get into office and leave you alone. Get out of the way. And if we can do that, that's how I opened my business up almost 37 years ago. I didn't have any government regulations. I opened my shop with $5 in my toolbox, and my customers let me grow. And I wasn't, any problems with it because I was in the county. Now, once I got in the city, oh my Lord, talk about regulations, talk about red tape, talk about code enforcement. I can see why businesses don't survive. It's very difficult.
Well, we've been talking about that, and that's the other piece, is going to our local community meetings and we can do the same thing. There's no reason why we can't get rid of every 2 regulations for every new one.
I'm going to
exactly the same thing. I think that's a wonderful
That's
idea.
exactly what we're going to be working on. Unfortunately, the people in power want to stay in power. All right, we got to go. Hey, Karen, thank you so much for calling. All right, everybody, we'll talk to y'all tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guarantee.